Hey, what's up guys? Matt here with Fix Anything Save Money. Today we're going to be showing you how to clean out a carburetor on a small engine. This is off of a Poulan PL3314 chainsaw. So if you're wondering how to remove this, I'll put a little caption in the top right hand corner of the screen, and I do have a video up on how to remove and replace this carburetor. This is a carburetor. This is actually a brand new carburetor, so it works fine. It's made by a company called Hipa, and they also make the kit that we're going to be using to clean the carburetor. So you can see here, this is a carburetor adjustment and cleaning pack. So you can see here, these are all of our adjustment screws. I also have a video up if you want to check out my channel on how to adjust the carburetor. So we're not going to be using the adjustment tools, but we will be using these brushes and these little wires. So you could see, I'll put links in the description where you could pick up this kit. Like I said, it's made by a company called Hipa. They make small engine carburetors, parts. You know, they make a lot of stuff for chainsaws, leaf blowers, weed whackers, push mowers. So I'll put a link on where you could buy this, and then yeah, be sure to check out their website. I'll put a link on their how to get to their website as well. So I'll be sure to check them out because they offer some pretty cool parts for small engines. Okay, so like I said, this is out of a Poulan chainsaw, and you might be wondering, you know, when you need to clean a carburetor. And really, anytime your engine has been sitting for a very long time, if you haven't been using it in a long time, and then you go to start it and it, you know, idles funny, or you know, it's very hard to start, or it seems like it's starved for fuel, all those are good indicators that your carburetor is gummed up and it needs to be cleaned. So we're going to be walking you through how to do that. So we'll just get this a little bit closer. So the things we're going to need obviously are our carburetor that we're going to be cleaning. Now you might need a flathead, but on this carburetor, we're just going to use a Phillips head screwdriver. You're going to want a pair of safety glasses. I like the ones that are foam lined, so you can put them on, because when you're spraying this carb cleaner, you know, the carb cleaner kind of goes everywhere. So it's good to have glasses on just to, you know, prevent that from getting in your eyes. You could wear a pair of gloves if you like. I'm not going to in this video, but you know, a pair of gloves is always a good idea. So yeah, we'll get right into it. Oh, and then you'll also need an oil catch pan. So I'll also put links on where you can pick up everything that, you know, I'm using here. As far as carb cleaner goes, I like using this gum out. So yeah, we'll dive right into it. And then just, you know, a paper towel or something to set the parts off to the side. So what I always recommend people do before they start taking this apart, or when they start taking it apart, is to just take pictures of it. All carbs are a little bit different, and if you're not working on this exact one, then, you know, putting them back together if it's your first time can be a little tricky. So I recommend just always, you know, taking pictures, and that way you'll know which way it goes back together. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this cover, which houses our diaphragm. So another thing that could go wrong if your engine is, you know, rough idling or won't start, the diaphragm could be bad. So we'll show you what that looks like. There's a diaphragm here and here. And it kind of just looks like on this side, it kind of just looks like a gasket. And on this side, it, you know, looks a little bit different. So we'll show you each one. So we're just going to remove these 4 screws. And a number of things could be wrong with your diaphragm, which could be making your engine run rough or not start at all, or idle weird. You know, if it's idling funny, and when you go to adjust your idle screw, if that's not really working, it might be a problem with the diaphragm, or it could be a dirty carb. So it's best to examine. So you can see here, this is the cover plate. And then here's our actual diaphragm. So you want, when you're examining it, you want to make sure there's no tears, no visible dirt or grime. We're going to be spraying this with carb cleaner as well. So we just want to make sure there's no issues with it. It's not torn, and it's pliable. We don't want it too rigid. You know, we don't want it old and dry rotted. If it is, then it's probably no good and it's not going to function the way that it should. Okay, and you can see here how it works. If you press this up, it kind of lifts up. So you want to make sure that that's functioning correctly. Okay, so we could put this back. I like to put everything down the same way that it's going to go back on. Okay, now this is the more complicated end of the carburetor. So here we have a bunch of little parts. You could see that screw right there. And then we have a pin that's held in with this little clamp here. And I'll show you what that all looks like. And then underneath this piece right here, there's a spring. So we'll undo this screw and I'll show you what that all looks like. This is where you would want to take a picture because it could be hard to put back together if your carburetor doesn't look exactly like mine. Okay, so once you loosen that screw, you can see the way this is going to come off. So you can see what that looks like. And then you can see there's a little pin here that slides out. And you can see it like that. Hopefully the camera's picking that up decent. But that little pin is like that, so we could set that off to the side. And then you can see here, we have our spring. And the spring sits right into that hole right there. We could take our screw out. And then we have a little pin right here. It's going to come out right here. And you can see the way this pin is. So you could see this little fork is going to go into this pin when we go to put it back together. Like that. And then we're just going to pretty much take a wire brush to all these little parts now that we have this apart. So what I also like to do here is, so this side of the carburetor, we know all these parts are for. I like to keep everything straight in my head. And then here we're just going to take off this one screw here. Could remove this. And then here's our other diaphragm. See, like that. So you could tell that's in good shape. It's pliable, it's not dry rotted. You know, it's not torn in any way. So we'll put that down the same way it's going to go back on. Okay, so now we have pretty much everything apart on this carburetor. So all we're going to do now is put our glasses on. The safety glasses are very important just because you do not want to get this, you don't want to get this carb cleaner in your eyes. Okay, so we'll just take this off. And we're just going to insert that. This is a brand new can. Okay, and then what you want to do is you just want to spray in to every single one of these tiny little holes on each side. You can see all those holes because that's where your deposits are going to sit, and that's what's going to make your carburetor run rough. So we're just going to go ahead and just spray into every single little hole. And like I said, it's going to come out, you know, it could come out of these ports. So you just want to be careful. Make sure you have glasses on. And you could be pretty liberal with it, you know. You want to make sure if you're going to do it, you're doing it right and you're getting it fully clean. And we can flip the carburetor over. Okay, so now that we have, and you could even let this carburetor soak in the fluid. If you want, you could, fill up a little, bowl or whatever with carb cleaner and let it sit in there. And then you could open up this. The goal is to get any deposits that are in there out. You can see that one just sprayed me in the arm. Okay, so now we have our carburetor pretty clean. We could go ahead and take these wire brushes that Hipa provided us, and you could just pick out, whatever size brush will fit in whatever hole. And yeah, you could kind of just go to town on everything. Make sure everything's clean. You can see they give you some really tiny little wire brushes to get into the smaller holes. And then you could go ahead and just take some more cleaner. And some of these holes are just the screw holes. Like this one right here is going to shoot it out of the fuel line. Okay, so now we could set that off to the side, and then we could go ahead and take a wire brush, or you could just take some of this extra cleaner and just kind of soak this up onto the diaphragms. Make sure your diaphragms are nice and clean. Make sure, here's a little gasket. You can make sure that's nice and clean. Just kind of examine it. You could spray it with some cleaner. Same thing with this one. And then this diaphragm, you want to make sure that, you're getting underneath that. Okay, and then you could even clean up these little parts here with the wire brush they give you. Our little pin here. Kind of soak some of this up. And just clean up these pieces. Okay, so now we could go ahead and put everything back together. So the one thing I want to show you is how this piece goes back together with the pins and all that on all this stuff, because this is probably the most complicated part of putting it all back together. So the first thing we're going to do is take this piece, and you can see that dimple right there, how it's rounded right there. So that's what the spring sits into. The spring sits into this rounded piece, like that. Sometimes it'll just stay in there, but other times it won't. So what we're going to want to do is put the spring in there and kind of set it in there, like that, just so it's sitting up. And then we could assemble the rest of it. So like I said, this little dimpled end will go down into the spring, and then we could go ahead and put our bar in. And then you can see the way the pin is. The pin's going to go right into this forked end like that. And then you're just going to want to kind of set the pin in and have it sit on the spring. Like so. And then you could take your screw, put that in. while you're holding it all down and together. And then you could go ahead and tighten your screw. And that should, the screw holds that bar down into place and keeps everything in place. So you can see everything is in place. We could tighten this down the rest of the way. Okay. So now we could put the diaphragm back on. And you want to make sure you get the diaphragm lined up so that you could see the holes, so that the screws go in without puncturing the diaphragm. You really don't want to damage that diaphragm, or you'll be buying either a new diaphragm, which they could be very hard to find, just a diaphragm. More likely you'd just be buying a new carburetor. And like I said, I have videos on how to replace the carburetor in this chainsaw. Like I said, it's a Poulan PL3314 chainsaw. So I show you how to take out the carburetor, disconnect everything, and reinstall it. And then I also have separate videos on how to adjust a carburetor. So if you're curious on that. Okay, so there's that. Then we could flip this over. And we could put our other gasket on. Or our other diaphragm. Goes on just like that. Then we could set this piece on top. And like I said, just take pictures before you take everything apart so you know the orientation of which way it goes back together. It's going to save yourself a lot of headache. Even when you're taking the carburetor off of whatever engine you're working on, I like to always take pictures of each step, and that way you know that it's going to go back on the right way. You could just flip through your pictures at each phase, you know, and then when you're going to put everything back together, you could just kind of go to the last picture you took and kind of go in reverse. And that's a good way to, you know, to make sure you're not screwing anything up. So yeah, guys, that pretty much sums up this video on how to clean a carburetor on a small engine. Like I said, this is on a Poulan PL3314 chainsaw. But all carburetors are pretty much, you know, there's little variations, little differences, but, you know, a lot of them are, you know, a lot of them, it's the same concept for a lot of them. So, like I said, guys, if you have any questions, be sure to reach out in the comments section, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Otherwise, be sure to like this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel, check out all my other tool and DIY videos. And also be sure to check the links on where you can pick up this hipa carburetor adjustment and cleaning kit. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.